Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh and this is your JIS News for Monday, October 11. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says new vaccination policies are to be implemented after the government completes its public education campaign. While the policies are being worked on, the state will ramp up its vaccination mobilization tours across the island.
We will respect people's rights. We will follow the process before we do anything that would infringe on anybody's rights. But the two things can't continue in parallel. The children must go back to school. They have suffered the most. And so there will come a time when we will have to insist upon persons taking the vaccines or be restricted.
Prime Minister Holness was speaking during Thursday's tour of vaccination blitz sites in north-central Clarendon. Mr. Holness reiterated his appeal for persons to take the COVID-19 vaccines, as it is the safest avenue for the country to return to normal.
If you want to return to normal, if you want to go party, if you want to check your friend past 10, take the vaccine. Those who don't take the vaccines remain the host population for the reproduction and possible mutation of the virus. The consequence of that is that people who would have taken the vaccine face the potential of being infected by a mutated version of the virus for which the original vaccine they took would not be as effective.
Cabinet this morning had its first in-person meeting since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in March of last year. The weekly meetings, chaired by Prime Minister Andrew Holness, were held virtually in line with the government's COVID-19 protocols. But with all ministers, including cabinet ministers, the Attorney General and ministers of state fully vaccinated, weekly in-person meetings have resumed.
Today, we have taken the decision to return our cabinet to face-to-face, not just for the effectiveness of our decision making, but as a symbol to the rest of the country that yes, we are still in a pandemic. However, we must transition to living with the COVID-19 disease and the coronavirus that causes it.
In the meantime, the vaccine take-up by the island's teachers has been favorable. Acting Chief Education Officer Dr. Kassan Troop made the disclosure during Sunday's Get the Facts interview on JIS TV. Earlier this year, as part of the strategy for a resumption of face-to-face classes, the government launched a special support program to get educators vaccinated. Dr. Troop says the inoculation of teachers as well as students aged 12 to 18 years old is part of the risk ranking analysis guiding the safe reopening of physical school.
It is our plan that beyond the midterm break, in October, we should be able to get some instructions out of our cabinet to advise our school leaders and parents as to how we will do this on a phased basis to make sure that we do not compromise safety at this time.
The acting chief education officer says once the secondary level schools meet the Ministry of Health and Wellness's 65% vaccination mandate, a determination will be made for the resumption of in-person classes. Dr. Troop says the reopening of face-to-face school at the primary level will be determined by the school's enrollment numbers as well as the feasibility of implementing strict COVID-19 prevention measures. Still on education, outstanding payments to teachers who participated in the ministry's National Summer School program are to be completed by mid-October. Permanent Secretary in the ministry, Dr. Grace McLean, says of the over 3,500 teachers who participated in the sessions, only 950 teachers' payments were yet to be processed. Dr. McLean made the disclosure during a virtual post-cabinet press briefing recently.
We are committed to ensuring that all our teachers will be paid by at least the mid-October, which is next week, Friday.
Dr. McLean says the delay is due to the detailed vetting process utilized to facilitate the disbursement of payments. To remedy this, Bursa-paid institutions have been instructed to issue payments. Teachers who have not received payment by mid-October should contact their respective regional offices. Cabinet has approved a proposal for the establishment of 7 years of secondary education in Jamaica. Information Minister Favour Williams says the move will allow all students to have access to learning opportunities up to grade 13.
The mainstreaming of a 7-year program of educational training and experience is expected to meet the needs of students more efficiently and effectively and respond to local and international demands vis-à-vis 21st century skills, competencies, and certification.
Minister Williams was speaking during a recent post-cabinet press briefing. She argued that as Jamaica seeks to become more globally competitive, appropriate investments had to be made in education to give students access to even greater opportunities. And finally, 6 domestic violence intervention centers, DVICs, will be in full operation across 6 police stations by the end of this month. The centers, which were handed over during a virtual ceremony last Thursday, are in the parishes of St. Catherine, St. Mary, St. Anne, St. Elizabeth, Clarendon, and Westmoreland. The new facilities will add to the 4 existing centers at the Constant Spring and Matilda's Corner police stations in St. Andrew and the Morant Bay and the Yallis police stations in St. Thomas. Minister of Gender Olivia Grange says the establishment of the DVICs forms part of the government's efforts to address gender-based violence by strengthening the JCF's ability to respond and provide support to victims and family members.
It represents a major achievement in our response to the long-standing problem of domestic violence. These centers are strategically placed and will play a critical role in the delivery of service island-wide to support the implementation of the National Strategic Action Plan to eliminate gender-based violence in Jamaica.
I'm confident that having these facilities in place will not only strengthen the capacity of the police to rescue and support victims of domestic violence and their families, but importantly, these centers will provide a refuge and a beacon of hope for these victims.
Since the start of the year, 175 police personnel in domestic violence intervention and 704 domestic violence cases were referred to the existing centers up to September. The domestic violence intervention centers are the result of a collaboration between the European Union and the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP. It's being carried out under the Jamaica Spotlight Initiative, which supports concrete measures to end violence against women and girls. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.